Today I'm showing you how I got these source tracks to go from this
to really collaboration. I just found you in change. Yet it's not too late
to this.
to really collaboration. I just found you in shame. Yet it's not too late.
If you're learning how to mix and you're feeling overwhelmed by all the things you need to tackle, well, this video is probably for you. This is not an in-depth mixing tutorial, this is a mix overview. We're not gonna dive into all the nitty-gritty details of EQ and compression and saturation and everything. It's a bird's eye view of a mix, from routing to mastering. Let's go. All right, let us begin. So before we jump in, I think one important thing to talk about is routing. For this mix, I wanted to have as much control as I could, so I used a template, and it's not super complicated. So let's go into Cubase. I'll show you my approach to routing. So the basic idea is that tracks that are similar will get routed to a bus. If there's 5 snare tracks, they will get routed to a snare bus. Maybe snare mics, maybe snare samples will be separated, but then they will get to a snare all. You see here I have my snare all. It's the same thing for the kick. All of these drum related tracks will go into my all drum bus. This will then go to my pre-master, which is here. And then this goes to the master. Nothing crazy, nothing super complicated. It's the same thing for every section of the song. So for bass, for guitars, for keys, for vocals. Before we dive into drums, let's just listen to a little bit of the song. You'll hear half of the first verse going into the first chorus, so you can get a feel of what's going on there.
Waiting on you to really collaboration. Might just found you in shame. Yet it's not too late. Make a stand. Soon you'll be you will pick up.
So there you have it. Lots of guitars, heavy drums, big bass, screaming vocals, clean vocals, some backing vocals as well. A lot to do. So, drums! The only plugin that's active is the final limiter, so we can have a little bit of volume. Not very well recorded drums. It's my fault. I recorded them. I played them. I want, for this mix, a big bombastic drum. I needed to do a lot of work. So now we're going to listen to the drums fully processed, and then I'll take you to how I got there. So quite a big difference here. As I said, my intention for the drums was huge, lengthy snare, controlled bass drum, and roomy drums. If we're listening to my kick all here, so we have the combination of one mic, that's all I had, and one trigger set. I wanted the kick to be at the forefront of the mix, just like the snare, but to be still tight enough. Snare drum, snare top, raw. Some gate, some EQs. You know, tightening it, removing some of that resonating frequency that I did not want in this mix. I doubled the snare track and I put a transient designer on that double. And then we have a bottom snare. The combination of these goes like this. Right? So starting to have some mojo. I used some hardware, an 1176 and a Ruben Neve Design 551 EQ. So you hear the chain a little bit more, you hear the top end, a little bit more, there's less low mids in there. 2 snare samples, one that's fat, punchy, and powerful. The other one, roomy and lengthy. All of these microphones together. Second most important thing for the drum sound, usually it's the overheads, but in this case I did not really enjoy my overhead sound. I squashed them a little bit. I put some reverb. So it's all right. It does the job of being an overhead, but I needed some rooms. With some processing on the rooms, that's the whole drums without any sends. Now I'll activate the sends. Parallel processes on the drum. One parallel compression and EQ with this channel strip. And the most important thing is the drum VR. I'm again using the Rotten Pool reverb, which is now taking all the screen for some reason. And these really give the dimension that I wanted to the drums. Here it is. Bombastic drums. I forgot to include this in the video, but I created a Cubase routing template completely for free that you can download on my website. The link is down there. Use it, change it as you please, and hopefully it will help you in your journey of mixing. Moving on, the bass. What I did for the bass is basically split the bass in 3 parts in order to control the spectrum separately. So you've got the subs, the mid, and the grind. I'm not inventing anything here. Here is my bass. You've got some, some mojo in there, but I needed more. So I created a sub track from that same track, which sounds like this. By the way, if you don't have any headphones or decent speakers or a sub, this might not be really interesting. The grind track of the bass, I used a diesel amp, a distortion for guitars. Normally, there's nothing else that did the job like this. Not super pleasant by itself. Let's listen to those tracks together. Now the grind track. I'm gonna toggle that track on and off. Listen to the distortion of the guitar, and when I toggle the grind track off, listen to the hole that is created there, that something is missing. Really adds to the mojo of the distortion of the guitar, and that's why it's there. Moving on to guitars, main rhythm guitars. We're gonna focus on that. And here it is processed fully. So the main thing you can notice is they're brighter and they have a little bit more girth, a little bit more bottom end. They had a very good mid-range. I just progressively made them brighter and more smiley every move that I made. And there is a lot of stuff if you look on the All Guitar Bus. Each of these plugins is doing very little. So small moves go a long way. Now, it's time to talk about hardware. Not because you have to use hardware, because I'm using hardware in this mix. And usually that's the time where I will introduce hardware. Why? Because my drums, my bass, and my guitars are starting to gel together. There's the Heritage Audio HA73 EQ x2s. And yes, this is not made for mixbus processing, but sue me, I don't care. It sounds fantastic. And after that, we have the Serpent Audio bus compressor. Now I'm gonna toggle the preamps first and listen to what happens. This is without. And now with. To me, this is reorganizing the mid-range. The moves on the EQ are very, very small. It's very small, but it has a big impact because this is a mix bus. Next to that, the bus compressor. So I'll do that again, and I want you to listen to the attack of the snare and the low end stability, if you will. So to me, this is a fantastic use of these tools. You can do that with plugins, no problem. Moving on to keys. Keys are one of my favorite things to add to a song or to a production when I'm hearing that there are some spaces that could be filled in the frequency spectrum, or there's some chords that I like, but I want some notes to be emphasized. In this song, the keys came really late into the stage. Suddenly I heard the song in a different light and I was like, okay, this needs keys. Let's listen to that. Sad keys. Really love that. These keys are there to support, specifically in this section. I didn't want them to be heard so much as felt. Like if I mute them, there's something missing. Next section in the bridge, I wanted them to be heard, and I want them to complement the chords that happen in the guitar. So here's what I have in the bridge. I'll toggle the keys on and off in the bridge, and you tell me if you think it adds or not. So to me, there's a whole dimension that is lost when the keys are not there. Let us move on to vocals. I did all the vocals on there. Let's start with screams. Screams in general, raw, don't really sound that great unless you have a fantastic singer and it's just a crazy vocal chain that will take care of all the issues as you track. Not my case. I had a cheap condenser mic, a clean preamp. That's it. It's all I needed. But the basic sound that I have is, so let's listen to that track. Raw.
Spinning inside your mind, biding your time. Idleness is a crime. It's where your dream dies. Adios.
This needs to be saturated, distorted, compressed to hell, and back. And let's see how I made them sound.
Spinning inside your mind, biding your time. Idleness is a crime. It's where your dream dies. Adios.
Not perfect. Much better though. In context with the mix.
It's on your mind, biding your time. Idleness is a crime. It's where your dream dies.
So you can hear the vocals clearly, you hear the words clearly, but they're not overbearing. That's not all you're hearing. You're listening to the song and there's someone singing. That's what we want. Clean vocals. They were recorded more recently with better equipment in my vocal chain here. Yet it's not too late. Make a stand. So much better. There's more richness to it. You can feel some saturation through the preamp. There's some control as well with the compression. Still, this needed to be processed sort of heavily because it needs to sit on top of big guitars, bombastic drums, big bass, and some keys. So here's the final sound. Yet it's not too late. Make a stand. And in the context of the mix. Yet it's not too late. Make a stand. Soon you will become an. We're almost done. Let's get to mastering. So a few things about mastering. My philosophy is to try to mix as if I was going to send it to a mastering engineer. So when I apply my mastering, if there's an issue that's coming up that I think should be fixed in the mix, then I have my mastering hat and I'm going to say to the mixing engineer,
fix this.
So I'll just go back and fix this instead of trying to fix it in mastering. What did I use on my master? It's very simple. There's not much. There is this EQ, which I love, NIF, Soma. And there is not much that is being done. Nothing more than a dB of move. Moving on. Definitely a mastering move. I'm thinking there is some congestion in the mid-range. Looked for it, found it, removed it. Moving on. This move that I made on this mix is not something that I do on every mix. It is a parallel compression move on my master. And it's not much. I'm using 22.5% of this, and I'm not even boosting the output. So this basically is to bring in some controlled sustain of this mix. Let me toggle it on and off. Yet it's not too late. Make a stand. Soon you'll be. To me, it happens mostly in the low end. It's just a little bit of like gym pump type of thing, right? The last but not the least. And you see there's some things going on with the hardware in here. That's fine. Limitless, great plugin because it separates the transient information from the sustain information. I'm giving it volume and that's it. You'll see it's only when the snare basically is happening that you'll see something. Yet it's not too late. Make a stand. Soon you'll be. You have become an enemy of yourself, living in high time. Alright, that's enough for today. I hope you've enjoyed this mixing overview of my latest single. If you have any questions, please drop them down below. If you like the content, please subscribe. See you around.